The bromance brotherhood bonds totally built, and then this little thing called the epidemic COVID hit, and that's not going to keep us apart. We're 80 yards away, so our families are still kind of hanging out and getting together, and we're like, okay, let's we'll meet at my place and grab some cocktails and we'll figure it out. And we realized we actually hated making cocktails. We really hated making it. And we decided, let's just go buy cocktails, right? So we bought a lot of canned stuff. And then week number 2, we're like, oh, that wasn't great. Let's just buy some other stuff. So, you know what? Probably we were de facto doing research and development and didn't even know it. But you know what? Week after week, we're just upping our game and buying better cocktails. And we got to the point where we had tried hundreds of different cocktails, canned, bottled, pre-mixed, all of it. And we looked at each other saying, you know what, there's got to be other people like us, right, that want a better drink.
Welcome back to the Liquid Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Monte Burrow. Today, I have the pleasure to have these two gentlemen with me. I have Amit and Marcin from Mission Craft Cocktails with me. Guys, what's going on? What is the word?
What's going on, Monty? How are you?
Hey, Monty. Thanks for having us. Excited.
Doing well. I mentioned to you guys, if you are looking for how I built this or Masters of Scale or any of those other podcasts, this ain't it. We're gonna have a little. But I say that in jest. But we're gonna have a little bit of fun, guys. You'll learn a little bit more about my style. I'm gonna be all over the place potentially, so don't worry about making it perfect. We're really out here touching people, kissing babies, shaking hands and kissing babies, but just having a good time and getting an opportunity to tell our stories and learn a little bit more about each other. Is that cool?
Amazing, awesome. Really excited to be here. Thanks again.
So I know I didn't share much other than the name of your brand, Mission Craft Cocktails. And, this podcast is all about connecting with beverage founders and alc, non-alc, and everything in between. And so, I've seen the product. I hadn't had a chance to taste the product yet, but from everything I've seen, it's amazing. We're going to get to that.
There's a problem right there that you haven't had a chance to try the drinks yet. Even though where we met, there was plenty of cocktails for you to try.
See, that's just it. I was hustling. I was working the room.
And what a leap of faith you're taking. You're putting us on the show, haven't tried our drinks. You're just taking everyone else's word for it. That's brave.
You know what? I think I said this to you guys the first time we spoke. I'm an energy person. If there's anything that I can ever trust more than anything else, is my instincts and my gut. I will put any money, any dollar on that. So when I talked to you guys the first time and how we vibed, I wasn't worried about it. And awesome. my gut is 1,000, so I think I'm good. But enough about me. Here's how I want to kind of frame the conversation. So Marcin, born in Poland, grew up in Chicago. Amit grew up in Toronto.
Yep.
Born to immigrant family. You guys migrated, both of you, at some point to California, started a business together, became good friends, best friends. That wasn't supposed to happen. Yeah. None of that.
Look at us. None of this is supposed to happen.
None of that was supposed to happen. Oh, so they say. But it happened. So I'm really curious, from the very beginning, before there was Mission, before there was this migration and all of that good stuff, just tell me a little bit about your life growing up. So, and either one you can start, but tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up, Marcin, you and Shy, Amit in Toronto. What's it like growing up?
Yeah, I can start with that's okay. So my mom was here in Chicago. She was one of the first in her family that immigrated to the USA from Poland. So she had my brother here in the States in Chicago. She got pregnant, and at the time she didn't have health insurance, went back to Poland, had me, and then came back. So I really grew up, I would say, in the US because I was here as a 6 months old. My mom and dad got divorced early on, so my mom grew up with, being a single, hardworking mom with 2 kids. Grew up in very, very, very humble beginnings in actual proper Chicago. And just kind of growing up, I've always been having a knack to hustle, and whether it's raking leaves or snow plowing, I was always interested in business and trying to earn a buck and trying to learn something new every day, right? Which I still believe to this day. In school, kind of going back, I've always had an interest in business, but also got really into the gaming. So I was a semi-professional gamer. Then, through the stories of gaming and through high school, I needed to kind of get better in educational focus because I was missing a lot of school and truancy. But at that specific time, I was already a semi-professional gamer. And my stepdad, unfortunately, had an aggressive brain tumor. My mom had a broken leg. My stepdad wasn't able to leave Arizona for about a year. So really made me go into the workforce at a very early age. So got into the banking at a very early age. Prior to that, I was pushing wheelchairs at O'Hare Airport. So I've always had, the hustle mentality. And then, having an opportunity to be in a position in the banking world and just hustling my ass off to make sure that, I can continue moving up in the ranks to support my mom and help them out financially. Because here she was cleaning houses, babysitting, working 3 jobs, and kind of I got my start in the banking world. And, little by little went up and became a private client banker at a very, very young age. And, after being in Chicago over 21 years, I've decided this is not where I want to be with the cold and, just the vibes and the atmosphere. Everyone kind of shuts down towards the winter. So I visited California and West LA in Santa Monica area and realized, wow, can't believe people actually live here and are like the happiness and the sunsets and the vibes and the energy. And I remember to this day, I was on the pier of Santa Monica and there's like 2 little girls singing and the sunset's coming down. I'm like, wow, I need to be here. So crazy me started applying for jobs. I'm like, if I'm going to make a move, knowing no friends, no family, I'm going to switch careers to something more exciting, which I got into the early stage software startups and spent 5, 6 years there. I met my wife, then wanted to start a family and migrated to Orange County, which on the map, it looks very close, but it's this whole other island. It's a 2-hour drive at minimum. And once you live here, you don't visit there much often. So that's kind of my story. I know it's a little bit detailed, but
you know what? It's for those of us that, for those of the people out there that can see us, they might notice a bit of a age gap between me and Marcin. But one of the biggest things that we bonded over was our upbringing, right? So we both started out with extremely humble beginnings. I tell people that I grew up in definitely not the greatest neighborhood of Toronto, and everyone kind of side eyes me, going, "Toronto's got a bad neighborhood," which hey, it kind of does, right? So I had humble beginnings. We really scraped and scrounged and built everything we possibly could as a young family. My father was entrepreneurial. Unfortunately, he wasn't a great entrepreneur, but he was entrepreneurial. And it got me and my brother. So speaking of brothers, I'm the much like Marcin, I'm the younger brother by about 2.5 years. But it got me and my brother kind of working for my dad at a really young age, right? So I was working in his warehouse, which was a small warehouse at the age 12. I was doing door-to-door sales at 14, and not the candy bar cookies kind of sales. I was selling commercial and industrial light bulbs to factories. And here's this 14, 15-year-old kid knocking on doors, learning that being a cute kid didn't matter to people in business. They either needed your product or they didn't. So I developed a pretty thick skin and a bit of a hustle and entrepreneurial spirit as a kid. Really took that with me throughout my life. My journey is a little different from Marcin's. I was lucky enough to go to college. Was on a bit of a med school track in terms of love the sciences until I discovered drinking my second year, and then realized I'd probably be a better social animal than a guy you want to trust with your life. So veered off the med school track pretty quickly. And then when I got out of school, I graduated, was always into sports. Worked at a sporting goods store, putting myself through college as well. And back to personality wins. Sometimes I got hired and recruited by Nike really early. So fresh kind of college graduate in the sporting goods world, got hired by Nike in their equipment division, which is like the sporting goods product, not the footwear. And really realized that, hey, you know what, product and sports and marketing really was a passion for me, and followed that to the point of starting up some of my own companies, where I started inventing my own products, patenting my own products. This is all kind of happening in Toronto, and decided to start up a business with some partners in LA. All on the premise, of course, that I'd never have to move from Toronto because my family was there and loved it. But hey, a couple trips later, and California is a captivating place. So moved my family out here in 2011, and we haven't looked back. Right, we love it. The environment's amazing. Probably not the easiest place to start a business if you talk to a lot of people, but hey, there's tons of upside. So my pathway to getting here and in this neighborhood was really different than Marcin's, but a lot of our communal upbringing and commonality of hustle, of family, of hard work, of entrepreneurial mentality is the same, right? And that's kind of how we both got to the neighborhood. I think how we both got to each other is even a bit, again, a bit unique of a story as well. I'll let Marcin maybe start some of that off too.
Before we even get into that, what's very curious, or what's piqued my curiosity, if you're into sports and let's talk American football for a minute, and they always talk about quarterbacks who go from either cold weather teams to warm weather teams or vice versa, and how they show up differently, right? And I'm seeing these common threads, right? So again, some of them are super obvious, but I'm just digging into the weeds a little bit. So both of you coming from colder climates, going to warmer climates, being younger, siblings, et cetera, but even sticking with the colder climate, there's a skin that is built on people who have to maneuver in those spaces. And sometimes you don't think about that. It's easy to think about it from a sports standpoint, but I mean, honestly, just getting up when it's cold, and I mean, I've been to Toronto and Chicago multiple times. Just getting up when it's that cold, regardless of what you got to do, is in itself sometimes a major task. Do you think you carried any of that with you into, I mean, your career, not even your career now, but you at Nike, you in banking? Did any of that gumption travel with you?
So I definitely believe, just with the atmosphere and the weather and the warmth here in California, has definitely propelled my ambition to want to do more, work more, and still have that Midwest mentality of hard work. Yeah. And then also just the motivation of being on the West Coast and being surrounded with incredible amount of entrepreneurs, startups, having Silicon Beach and Santa Monica. But I also think, just to add to your point, Monty, I think also when me and Amit kind of just have conversations, the fact that we moved to a separate state of California, right, from Toronto and Chicago, not knowing any family, friends, I truly give a lot of credit to that, of being able to find happiness by yourself, being out there, being more open and curious to meet all different walks of life. Because I think so many people, when they get to their specific circles or even career circles or niches that they appreciate and enjoy, they're really stuck there. But when you go somewhere where you have no clue of having any friends or where to go or the people or family, you really open yourself up and kind of discover yourself. And we talk about it all the time. Like, if I didn't make the move, would I be me as I am today? Which I truly believe I wouldn't be. And of course, it's amazing that Amit did make that move, because here we are. I think we're more than just best friends. We're brothers, right? Like, our families vacation together. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old. When I travel or we have meetings, you know, his family watches my kids with my wife and hang out. We share dinner tables, holidays. So yeah.
I was having a conversation with my wife the other day, and she made me feel about this small. For those who are listening to this, it's very small. We were talking about what did you want to be when you were younger? You know, what you wanted to be when you grew up, and I really don't remember having anything. Nothing literally comes to mind now. Like you, I grew up in extremely humble means, and I don't remember. And I'm hoping it's just because I don't remember. But I feel a tear coming out right now. But when you guys were both growing up, you know, did you have any specific ambitions of being in a specific space? Was there a lawyer, a doctor in the mind frame? Was it a football player, soccer player, etc.? Just out of curiosity from that standpoint.
I'll start a little bit of that one because you know what? This is maybe it's a pretty cultural thing, right? So being East Indian, I'm not sure I even had a choice, right? I'll be honest, right? I had decent marks at school and I had an access to education, and even though we were struggling, you know, the school system was pretty good in Toronto, so I'm giving it credit. And so I think there was just a de facto parental pressure in my community going, okay, great. So you're going to go to med school, you know, and not to say I didn't have dreams, but like you, I don't think there was any other seed planted in my head aside from med school. And then when I got to college and realized, wow, the world is a lot bigger place than my little community, and there's so much more to do. And I realized, you know what, maybe the best version of me isn't with a lab coat, right? Maybe I can make more impact in the world being a happy person, following my passions than you know, being a good Indian boy and doing what his parents said. So to me, kind of like you, I don't think I had my own vision because I was told what I was going to be at a really young age, and you know, allowed myself to break free of that and found unbelievable happiness, joy, success, you know, and family life because of it.
And Marcin, you know what, Marcin, a different question for you. So I know Amit talked a bit about his dad being an entrepreneur. Where do you think your entrepreneurial ambitions came from?
So similar to Amit, so my dad has been a truck driver his entire life and started his own company, just being self-employed with one truck. So I wouldn't really call that as entrepreneur, almost like self-employed. I think just kind of piggybacking to the question you just asked, Amit, you know, growing up, I've always thought I want to become a pediatrician because I remember still from an early age, the impact that a pediatrician made on me and how I felt like, wow, this is what I want to be. And then as I got a little bit older, my dream has always been to be like FBI, CIA. But then, you know, I kind of got into the whole gaming world and stand professional. So I really didn't have a thought of what my career is going to be because I thought I'm going to be a professional gamer and get paid millions, which I wish I stuck to it because based on where we are today, there are people that are getting paid millions of dollars. But I think what really started happening, you know, once I had the hustle of always understanding if I rake some leaves or if I snowplow my neighborhood, you know, I always would then look at bringing other people like, hey, I have 3 houses, you could take one. So always kind of had that maybe natural knack of just like, hey, there's so much opportunity. It doesn't have to be a big business in the trucking or this. But really, what propelled kind of the ambition of entrepreneurship is when I was in banking, you know, I became a teller, I think it was like 16 and a half, if I remember correctly, right when that time gap was to work. I started off in the grocery store, which had like a bank, it's called TCF Bank. And all you had to do was go bother people in aisle and then ask them to open up a checking account, which if you did that to me today, say thank you very much, but no thank you, right? Now I think about how hard it is being that adult, no, you know, shopping. But then having a lot of customers that were self-employed, that had these small, medium-sized businesses, seeing the deposits, seeing the withdrawals, getting to know them, hearing the story of how they started, some that started when they were 50 and got out of the rat race, right? After so many years. I think that really started the trigger of like, wow, I definitely don't see myself doing banking for the rest of my life. So during that time, you know, immediately, I think for me, this is maybe just to add some more color, Monty, is for me is I've probably started 8 to 9 companies that all have been expensive lessons. I wouldn't call them failures, but they were failures.
Yeah.
And it's always been, early days, I had a customer that did wholesale perfume. I met with him. He was one of the biggest players in Chicago. So I'm like, well, I'm going to start a wholesale perfume and then sell it on eBay. And then another company in the clothing, and then, in the beverage space, as well as like feminine care. So like all these things, I've always found someone that I had met, and I'm like, they could do it. I could do a little bit differently and better. So it's never like passion. It was always like, how do I start something and chase something for that dollar to get out of the rat race? So I think that also just led through multiple years of failure. I would say from like 17 to 29, 30 of just, failures of trying, and then taking a year and then trying again, never really finding that right purpose, product, and then passion, and then like real a mission behind it, right? Instead of just chasing, I can create a better clothing brand, which was, a failure that I started as well. So that kind of went broad when I met Amit, who is definitely, can't say older because I feel like you're at the same age level as me, but
biologically older, but
biologically older and
wiser maybe on age, but that's it.
Yeah, like when we met, right, I had so much experience of starting 8 different brands on my own, self-funding, losing money, learning as I go, because you kind of have to, right, when your back's against the wall. And then it was just so natural when we get into the origin of the story. But
I was gonna say, I think you just nailed it, right? You were chasing something versus finding something, right? Which there's a big, huge difference, because the definition of a failed business is you stop and you give up, right? And the definition of a successful entrepreneur, and I mean, the three of us, again, air quotes under success, but the entrepreneurial spirit of you just don't stop, right? Wall after wall after wall. On those other ones, Marcin just didn't have the passion to get past that 6th wall, right? Where you need to be so committed, so passionate, so single-minded in purpose that whatever wall you either break through, go over, dig under, because it's daily, right? So you have to have that passion, which we found, and so I would say inadvertently found, right? That's the weird part, and maybe that's how part of it is, right? It's less calculated, and you just got to stumble into something and go, wow, I love this, right? And that's I think how we got. And I think that's how we have our fire and our passion, is we fell into something and realized we loved it.
Seeing and hearing you guys together, I get it, right? Where I'm lost is, how in the world did y'all ever even get together to get to this point? What was that spark? How did y'all even come together? Please explain.
Yeah. Before you even go, I always tell my wife, right, like, everything happens for a reason. You definitely believe in fate, and knowing that, like, we moved here for the best blessing, right? Now I have 2 kids, but I'm going to share the origin story. But truly, Monty, it is crazy. Like, when you hear the story, when you tell it to people, they're just like, no way.
Yeah. Again, super kismet, fate, whatever you want to call it. I'll leave out what specific charity, but we were at a charity event. And truthfully, when you see someone in passing, we didn't talk to each other, didn't make contact, nothing. And then I think a week or 2 later, he's walking his dog with his wife. I'm walking my dog. And if anyone knows Marcin, they know Marcin, that he remembers people, and he's Mr. Friendly. And he reached out, I'm not going to say I was a gruff old man walking my dog in the morning, but I'm 54 years old. I'm not out there, hustling to make new friends, right? So this guy, full sleeves, tats, muscular, towers above me. He's like, hey, were you at that charity event at XYZ? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I was there too. I'm like, oh, I kind of remember. So we just, made that little cross, connection while we're walking our dogs. And then we saw each other again. And all of a sudden, we're walking our dogs, realizing we are literally a 9-iron away. We live 80 yards away from each other. And we'd lived there for, a year and a bit. He'd lived there for a year and a bit, never met. And now we're walking our dogs. All of a sudden, these dog walks became, daily dog walks. Because now we're hanging out and we're chit-chatting about life, and we're finding out, a lot of what we told you, right, about a lot of these commonalities of our upbringing. And all of a sudden, age doesn't seem so important, right? Thankfully we're walking, not running, so age wasn't important. but we're walking and we're trading these stories, and I'm saying, hey, these my immigrant humble beginnings, and I transplanted from Canada and uprooted my family. We didn't know a soul. And he's like, yeah, well, top this. I didn't know anyone either, and I came from an immigrant family. So we connected on so many of those commonalities. And like I said, I'm 20 plus years older, so I've got a little bit of the birthright to give Marcin a bit more advice on the family side than he can give me, because I've lived it, right? My daughter's 20 and his is 9 months, so we shared a lot of advice, and then it was, again, a lot of life similarities and goals, and how we viewed family, and how we viewed, our wives, right? And how our relationship with our wives is so similar, and a lot of things like that. And that's how the friendship formed. Not the business, but that's how the friendship formed.
He did miss out one really important thing. Those weren't just dog walks. There was always a cocktail with every single dog walk.
Yes.
And we were making ourselves every single time, whether it's margarita or
100%. That was you're right, a key pivotal point, that our walks always had a margarita or a cocktail in hand. And so you can imagine, right? The longer the walk, the bigger the drinks, and the more conversation happening.
And it was
walking the dogs with a cocktail. The Cali is coming out. The Cali is coming out now.
And Monty, I'm like, wow, this guy being, 21 years apart, enjoying a drink on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, Thursday.
Love it.
And I'm like, wow, okay. I really want to get to know Amit, because we're having an awesome time, just like in our little neighborhood. And
hey, you can't do that in Toronto in January. So hey, back to enjoying our location.
And that's what I meant by, even like I said it kind of, it's not I don't think it's a huge milestone, but that whole piece about coming from a colder weather climate.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean by that. So I moved from New Jersey, New York area to Atlanta. And I noticed my whole well-being has changed, because I'm out more now. I'm out longer. It's warmer, and it's amazing what it does to your psyche. Now, that doesn't mean to be an entrepreneur you have to go to a warm weather climate, but it really does sometimes have an impact on people, and you'd be surprised, how it changes things.
100% agree. Yeah, absolutely agree.
So you're walking the dogs, you're having a cocktail. Yep. You're at this time, you're still in banking. And you're
no.
This is
okay. Yeah, when I moved here from Chicago, this is now over 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years. I went into the early
gaming. You're gaming.
No. Software startups.
Okay. Software startups. So you see how well I told you this is not how I built this, right?
Yeah. It's not edited 100 times, but hey, I'm a spokesperson for how I built this. No, I'm kidding, but I do appreciate and I love that podcast.
It's a dope podcast. I love it.
I will say something that kind of ties into all of us being connected. I first discovered Fawn Weaver on how I built this podcast, and was so amazed that I immediately reached out. So yeah, crazy how the world works, and listening to that podcast,
All right. So you're having your cocktails, you're walking your dogs. You're starting to bond, brotherhood is starting. Was it at that point when you said, hey, let's go build a company together? What was the next step, or what was the key? How did those conversations lead to eventually where you guys are in this space now?
So hey, the bromance, brotherhood, bonds totally built, and then this little thing called the epidemic, COVID, hit. And all of a sudden, the two outgoing guys that loved speakeasies and hanging out at bars with the family and going to restaurants and being foodies, it all stopped, right? Everyone's world stopped. And that's not going to keep us apart. We're 80 yards, away. So our families are still kind of hanging out and getting together. And we're like, okay, let's, we'll meet at my place and grab some cocktails and we'll figure it out. And we realized we actually hated making cocktails. We really hated making them. Like, it's time consuming.
And you also weren't good at it.
It was messy, and I hate to admit that now we're in the cocktail business. We sucked at making cocktails, but we did. We sucked at making cocktails. So we did it, and we went out. So then we decided, let's just go buy cocktails, right? So we bought a lot of canned stuff, and then week number 2, we're like, oh, that wasn't great. Let's just buy some other stuff. So you know what? Probably we were de facto doing research and development and didn't even know it. But you know what? Week after week, we're just upping our game and buying better cocktails. And we got to the point where we had tried hundreds of different cocktails, canned, bottled, pre-mixed, you know, all of it. And we looked at each other saying, you know what? You're 30, I'm 50. We're guys that don't like making cocktails. We get the COVID hit, but there's got to be other people like us, right? That want a better drink. And most of the stuff we were tasting was so watery or so syrupy or didn't have enough, honestly, enough, you know, alcohol in it. They were like 8, 11. You poured over ice and it was dead and syrupy. So we being consumers, realized there was a hole in the market. And, you know, at that point, like everyone else, we're kind of stuck at home, and we've got our own businesses and other things. So we also said, why, right? Hey, why do we really want to start another business, right? At this point, what are we going to do it for? And for us, you know, because we met at a charity event, because giving back means so much to us and our families. And I've got a daughter that's 20 years old, or, you know, at 18 at the time, that wanted to change the world and still does. You know, philanthropy, and the world was hurting, right, with COVID, and it still continues to hurt for different reasons. We just said, let's create a business around giving, right? So whatever we do, you know what, whatever this cocktail company is going to be, let's anchor it in 2 really important things. One was, let's design the company to give back. And that's why we call it Mission Craft Cocktails, right? So the mission's always been about giving back 5% of revenues to the community. And in this particular year, we chose food banks. And we'll maybe talk about that specifically, because I think it deserves its own conversation. And then the other one was, okay, I'm sure all these companies in the business never wanted to get into the cocktail business to deliver mediocre drinks, right? So where did they go wrong? And we just said, we think they just compromised along the process to get to either a cheaper bottle or whatever. So we always said to ourselves, whatever drinks we develop and whatever we put on the market, if we cannot open that bottle and serve it to our friends in our house and be proud of it, then we're not going to do it. So that always kept us elevated in everything we did, because I'm serious about it and Marcin's serious about it. Hey, no one wants to open a bottle of bad wine and serve it to their friends and claim it's theirs. So we didn't want to do the same thing with cocktails. So we've stuck true to the production process and how we develop the cocktails to get to that point. And we've always struck true to building a business that gives back. So that's, I guess, the origin story, and I think the mission statement of what our business is.
A lot of people have bad experiences with products, and they don't typically go out and go make one. How in the world did you figure out how to do this? So all that's great. How did you go? How did you know where to get bottles? How did you know, I can get this liquor? What was that process like? Especially for those who are trying to do potentially what you're doing, or are starting to do it and want to see if they're crazy. How did you even learn how to do this?
Yeah, I mean that's a really, really, really good question. And it's funny, like thinking back. So
can I just say, I wish we asked that question harder to ourselves 3 years ago, but yes.
So, you know, I would say, before I even go into that, something that Am and I pride ourselves on is, throughout our business careers, life, is just being resourceful of everything that's out there, especially the internet, Google, right? So once we decided, you know, that night that we said we're going to start this business with 50% bravado, 50% naive, and 50% we were drunk. And as you know, it doesn't add up to 100%. And then the next morning we woke up hungover, like, hey man, do you really want to do this? And we both just look at each other like, let's fucking go, right? Like let's do this. We could do it. And I think we were really naive and didn't know much about it. But so I think the first step was, okay, looking at the top 5, maybe even 8 at the time of the cocktails that we did try. You know, they always have to say where they manufacturing it. So then starting to know is like, okay, here are some of the facilities based on Google research with city and state of where they're manufacturing. Then starting to just Google as much as, you know, any articles that are about the RTD, which is still early on, right? So there's not too much information, but it was just starting to make a lot of calls to some of these facilities that you can uncover on Google based on, you know, the other products they're using it, getting to people to ask them like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. What is the process? What does it take? And I would tell you, you probably contacted over 30 and a lot of them just said, good luck. This isn't something for us. And because as Amit said from the beginning, for us, it's about using fresh ingredients, locally sourced ingredients. So we were lucky enough, and we talked to people out of state, in state. So that was like the beginning process of, first and foremost, before we get fancy about finding award-winning mixologists to perfect the recipe, you know, in a single serving, we need to find out who's going to make this, because if we're getting into this business from day one, we know we're going to look to build something meaningful, right? That's going to provide a huge impact in the world, because you need to build a real business to make a contribution of 5% revenue to be really impactful. So we knew from the beginning, like, we can't go to a small, tiny place that's not going to allow us to scale. So it's really identifying that facility. That was number one. And, you know, being in early stage software startup sales my entire life, you know, I'm not afraid to pick up the call and call the CEO of any company. We all know the facilities that we want to potentially partner with. So I will say, in this space, what we find very shocking, that's, you know, different from both spaces that we've been in, is everyone is so willing to help and like give you free information or give you an introduction to someone. So that was really, you know, day one of, we need to find where we could manufacture it. So after, you know, about 30 places we spoke to, talked to, we really narrowed down to 3. And then we were lucky enough to find the one that we felt best with, the founder that really cares about craftsmanship, quality, procedure. It's only about 2.5, 3-hour drive from where we currently live. So we knew that's gonna be a huge benefit, because I will tell you, during R&D, that took us 1.5 years more than we expected. There was a lot of visits in 3-4 days increments, because when you taste from 8 in the morning to 8 p.m., you're drunk by 9 a.m. So you can't drive home, right? So you have to spend there a couple days. So that was really like day one. And then going into, you know, the bottles and labels. I mean, I'll make a touch a little bit onto that, but I do think in any business, right? Whether you start a t-shirt business, it's trying to be resourceful. There's so many amazing brands that are in your city that you can reach out to, and everyone wants to help out an entrepreneur, so aspiring entrepreneur, right? So I think that's kind of day one of what we started getting into space.
Marcin made a really important point of, you know, just the research, and Marcin's incredible at, I call him the CIA. Like, he can get on there, and I think it's part of his gaming skills.
He said he wanted to be in the FBI.
Yeah, he's married them together so well, because his fingers go, he clicks. My eyes don't move as fast as he even moves. So he's got it down. He FBI's it down. He distills so much information. But one of the real important things was, we went out and we reached out to all these different distillers and people. And not only did we realize who can make it and who can't make it, but it was the process of how we actually make what we make, right? So it was, most guys we saw, A, didn't want to do the project, but B, they couldn't do the project because they couldn't deal with anything but water and flavors, right? They couldn't deal with real juices, and they couldn't deal with a long R&D and manufacturing process to get, you know what, the juice of 6 limes in every bottle, right? And it not settle, and it not have all these shelf stability issues. So no one also wanted to tackle what we had to tackle for them, right? So they were all looking at us like, you guys can't do that. You're kind of crazy. Stay out of the business. So they gave us a lot of, you know what, slam doors in our faces, you know what, less about us potentially as customers and more, they didn't know how to do what we were asking them to do, which I think is a real important part, because it's really the separation on the product side from us versus I would say the majority of people, if not all of them, is the way our process in making our drinks is now.
From that day, you guys woke up and said, hey, do we really want to do this? To the day that first bottle was in your hand, how long was that? How long did that take?
Wow. So the first production bottle,
Mm-hmm.
it was 2.5 years, right?
Yeah,
Two,
a little over 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Not 3, but yeah, closer to 2.5.
Yeah, it's one long hangover from for us waking up to that point.
A lot of sampling back and forth between then, trying to come up with formulas and landing on recipes and all that good stuff.
You know what? I think if you remember earlier, we said we're not good cocktail makers, right? We love them and we're great connoisseurs, but part of our process on the making and the R&D was literally hiring an award-winning mixologist to come to our homes, and we did this probably in 4 or 5 separate visits, and we basically said, "Hey, let's go through your best margarita, Mai Tai." So we did a drink kind of every different day, and we went through, shaker after shaker after shaker until we got to a taste profile and flavor profile we liked. And then we go, great, what are all those natural ingredients you have in that shaker? And then the hard part for us was, and I hate to say that making a great cocktail in a shaker is not difficult, but then commercializing that shaker to 5,000 liter vats is what really took us a long time.
That was the reality check.
That was the reality. And we thought it was going to be a lot easier. We're like, great, take a shaker, throw some juice. We'll just, however much cranberry juice you need, just need 5,000 gallons more of it now. But it didn't, that was all part of the education process for us. But that's how we started. And that goes back to our mentality of, we wanted to make sure we were proud serving drinks to our friends. And we wanted to make sure we preserved that shaker experience when it got poured out of a bottle. And that's the part that took 2.5 years.
Yeah. And
my R&D.
Yeah. And you have to realize, when we go in there saying we want to make our own orange liqueur, we want to use California oranges, we want to infuse our whiskey for 48 hours with California orange peels, a lot of these people thought we were just crazy. Like, absolutely not. And the fact just to get to that point, spend, so much time.
And it would have been probably a lot cheaper and a lot quicker if you did cut a couple of those corners. But I'm assuming, but then it would have been totally off brand, off mission, right? So it's great to hear that you have the conviction to lead with your heart, lead with that mission, and stay true to the brand, because that in itself will draw and consistency and keep people from going from consumers to advocates. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you. I think it's conviction and passion, right? I think as an entrepreneur, if you truly believe you're doing the right thing and you don't let people talk you out of it, I mean, if we listened to anyone else, we'd be a 8% margarita spritzer in a can right now. And the world doesn't need any more of those. So we conviction and passion. I think that's what's kept us aligned.
What does ultimate success look like for you guys?
It's a hard answer, but it's a really easy answer. So I mean, again, part of why we wanted to create this business and create a perpetual giving machine, ultimate success for Amit and I is to grow the business, scale at a certain point where we could bring on industry, veterans that are better operators, know the space, and know how to take the company from A to Z. And for Amit and I to change titles from co-CEOs to chief donation officer and look at this year, this quarter, this month, how do we spend our millions of dollars in choosing the right charitable causes, and then, be that spokesperson as well as role of identifying the cause that we want to donate support to, and let the right people run the business. So that way our mission could have a bigger impact the more dollars that it comes in from real business operators. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
100%. That's absolutely the end game for us.
Are you, I'm just thinking about something. I don't think I asked this, but now I'm going back a little bit. From the time you got your first bottle and obviously you are where you are right now, but from the time you got your first bottle, were you guys still working your full time, working this, was this something that you were doing? Okay. So you're working, you're building a brand, and building a brand is a lot of work. Building it correctly is a lot more work.
Yep.
So you're doing all this work. How did your family, what did your family think? What was your wife's perspectives? What were they supportive? Were they like, are you insane? Because there's people out here again that might be looking to do what you're doing, and we want to give them the true picture. What was going through their mind?
You can start.
Yeah.
I'll have a nice finish.
Yeah, I think, you know what, the wives were already freaked out, you know, years ago, going, okay, this bromance makes no sense, but man, they love each other. They constantly talk to each other. They're always on the phone. So they already knew we were odd ducks, right? And then when we decided to do this, you know, they both, okay, humor the guys, let them do this. They're kooky and passionate about it. And then when they saw that we really are digging deep, and we say this to each other every day, if our families weren't best friends and our wives didn't see us hustling together and see the grind, and you know, I'm at a different point in my life at 50 something. My wife's going, yeah, shouldn't we be kicking back, not ratcheting up? And Marcin's got a young family where his wife, you know, and his kids need time. So it's so important that if our wives aren't on board and believe in what we're doing, then there's no way we could do what we're doing. They, you know, told my wife the other day, I'm like, oh yeah, Saturday, you know, me and Marcin, we got a brainstorming session. She's like, okay, well, great. You know, it is what it is, right? She knows that we're so driven in this and that the business has purpose. And I think my daughter at 20 and my wife are so supportive of the business and the purpose, and they see the bounce in my step and in my voice, and they hear the passion. They would never in a million years deny me of that, or hopefully the world of the impact we're going to make. But I go back to the simple fact, if our wives weren't friends and our families weren't this tight, I think they would be a little bit more begrudging of the time we spent. But this doesn't work any other way unless they are on board and fully committed. And you know, my daughter's working, you know, demos and helping, and you know, my wife was helping pack boxes the other day. It really has to be a family, if not physical effort, mentally commitment, a mental commitment.
Yeah. So for me, you know, my wife, we've tried to start a few businesses together, and she knew my work ethic and hustle and trying to still categorize time without the kids and then the business. So she kind of had a small inclination of what it's going to take, but we launched to market the same month my daughter was born. So if anyone's listening with kids,
no pressure. Yeah,
no pressure at all. That is when you need to be husband and best partner 24/7 without any distraction. So it was definitely really challenging because, as you know, starting a business, there's fires that happen. There's only so much Amit could do. There's things that we have to do things together. So it's definitely been a huge challenge. But again, if it wasn't for the support, her knowing the purpose of why we're doing it, and then the passion of, it's not just spending a couple hours here on the weekend and night as the other businesses. This is every single hour, whether it's waking up, having sessions at 5 in the morning where Amit and I work out, right? Or it's Saturday, meeting it together at 6 a.m. for coffee before my kids wake up, and then trying to categorize time just to juggle both, right? Like, how do you become and stay a good father, a good husband, to make sure you have that support? Because, you know, so many times where, you know, you have kids and you're having a good time and you get that email or a call that's a fire happening or it needs a problem to be solved immediately, you can't put that away for the next day, right? Or wait to call Amit, hey, can you take care of this? It doesn't work that way in the business world. So the full truth is always like, you know, if you are married or you do have a partner, to make sure that they are 100% committed. And it's not just saying, hey, honey, you know, or hey, I'm going to be starting this business, like, I'm gonna need your support, because that's easy. Because like my wife too, she's like, okay, I kind of get, I've seen you do it, we've done it before, you know. But then to reality, when you really are so driven and passionate and going through it at 100 miles an hour and still trying to, you know, categorize that time from being a good husband, good father, which, you know, I definitely pride myself on and try to do as much as I can and juggling both. But it hasn't been easy. And it's still not easy, right? Because it's going to continue as we scale and grow. It just added more time away from, you know, the family and the kids, but it's also being able to make sure that you can have that incredible time management, which then, you know, just focuses on family, kids, and then the business, right?
I don't know. I don't know how he does it. I'll be honest. I look and I look at how easy I have it because I look over at him. So anytime I feel like I'm tired or dragging, I'm like, okay, I gotta keep stepping it up because 2 kids, like toddler, newborn, you know, he still manages to go to the gym and put me to shame. And all the time he puts in, I'm like, okay, I'm not complaining because he's got an unbelievable schedule. I give him full props and kudos for figuring out how to do it. And at times I'm like, yeah, my 50-year-old body doesn't make sense. Doesn't even compute.
Man, you guys really are on to something special. And I mean, if the listeners and the viewers can't see and hear it, then they need to get checked out. I really do believe in what you're doing and can see the path. Before I let you go, there is a bit of a game that we love to play. It's called Here's One of My Favorites. And since there's 2 of you, I won't have you both answer all the questions. We'll kind of go back and forth. So whoever wants to go first, will go first, and then we'll go to the next person.
Sure.
But this is a game. Here is one of my favorites. There's no right or wrong answers. So whoever goes first, Amit, I guess it's on you.
Okay.
Here is one of my favorite childhood memories.
Wow. Man, humble beginnings, but I had so many favorite childhood memories. I'm gonna go with camping trips with my brother, my mom, and my dad. We drive about 5-6 hours north of Toronto. It's beautiful scenery up there. We do it almost every summer. And it didn't take a lot, right? You don't need 5-star hotels. It was a pitch tent on a charcoal hibachi and creek swimming, and it was just great times. I think if I look back and go, hey, if that was the purest, happiest times of my childhood, dirty camping trips with my folks cooking burgers on hibachi.
Love it. Marcin, this is one of my favorite bucket list items.
That's on the list, or he's checked off of his list?
That's on the list.
Oh, that's on the list.
Yeah.
I know some of your favorite bucket list items. Can't believe you're stalling on this.
You know what? Why don't you just answer for me? No, why don't you answer for me?
I'm not. Yeah.
I'm gonna call in a phone.
Are you gonna phone a friend?
I'm gonna phone a friend.
Hey,
I'm just trying to think of what, but go ahead.
Hey, are you kidding me? He and me, we're both huge exotic car fans. So if there's not a Aston Martin Valhalla on his bucket list right now, he's lying.
You know what? I'm thinking something with like family bucket list. and here we're talking
bucket list.
Car.
He said bucket list. That's an easy one.
So definitely that 100%. We have like little prototypes, and you got to see it, experience it in Pebble Beach, Monterey. So 100%. But a huge bucket list item that continues to be on the vision board is going out with the family. Doesn't have to be like a private yacht, but like on a boat / yacht to the Mediterranean.
Yep. Okay. I knew that was the second one.
Yeah.
Amit, this is one of my favorite things to do on a Friday night.
Oh, wow. That's super simple. Hey, I love having a cocktail on a Friday night, and that's not self-promotion. Yeah. Absolutely. End of the work week. You deserve it. The sun goes down. I'm sitting in my couch with my wife or friends and hanging out. I love.
If you're going to say something different, I'll call such bullshit.
Yeah, I love it. And I will say the only change to that repertoire is what cocktail I'm in the mood for, but 100%. And that's not a canned drink business guy answer.
Hey, there's no shame in plugging, even if that was. So I would not worry about
Mission Cocktails.
There it is. There it is. Marcin, here's one of my favorite superheroes.
Oh, superheroes. Give me all the hard answers or hard questions.
I don't know. I don't think I got the easy ones.
I would say Superman, right?
Okay.
Because he's always wanting to do good in the world.
He had a mission.
He had a mission. Yeah.
Here's one of my favorite movies.
Ooh, man,
That's a hard one.
Again, I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek, so I take any of the first 3 Star Wars, not the middle 3. Yep.
Star Wars. Here is one of my favorite places to travel.
Ooh,
man, I wish I had that one.
Yeah. That's an easy one for you.
I could talk travel all day long.
So blessed and grateful that last couple of years been able to explore a little more on the Europe side with the family. I would say the one being huge exotic car individuals and having a trip with Reese, my now son, was Monaco, which not only outside of just the atmosphere and cars and the city, we just had such an amazing experience meeting such amazing people throughout the world that all migrated to vacation in Monaco. So I would say as of now, that'll probably be top on the list.
Okay.
Okay.
And
but can I answer that one too?
Absolutely.
Africa. I love Africa.
Yeah.
I just got back from another safari. Me and my daughter have done 2 of them.
Nice.
I could go to Africa every year and feel insignificant in the world as I watch those amazing animals walk around. So sorry, I had to get that one out because that's a no-brainer.
Marcin, I'm gonna go back to you. Here's one of my favorite things to do to center myself.
So for me, and you know, part of the story of how I think I became strong mentally, emotionally, is really the gym. Is really my outlet to just put everything on the side and be so center focused. And of course, I meditate as well. And I think that's something huge in the mornings of just having that black coffee outside and taking 10 minutes. And one thing I do each and every single day, and I always tell others to try to do as well, is starting every day with gratitude. Because I think that's the most important thing outside of materialistic things or even relationships. What you want is realizing like what you currently have. So I would say that's like kind of the start of my day, but then really that centering myself is at the gym where I'm just like in my zone. Everything else is disconnected and it's just my happy place. And, you know, part of that I think also has been is I was almost 300 pounds, I was like 280 pounds at one point. So kind of getting myself to be more in shape and falling in love with the gym that made a huge impact emotionally and mentally. I'll definitely say that's the place.
Last 2. So we're going back to Amit. Here's one of my favorite qualities in my business partner sitting next to me.
Oh, wow. That's actually a really tough question because I think he's got so many. But I would say, man, I'm almost going to tear up saying this, but his heart. He's actually got the biggest heart of anyone. See, I am tearing up a little bit. He's got the biggest heart of anyone I know. One of the most caring people. Mature beyond his years in terms of his ability to care. I don't think I got that sense of caring for people until I was in my 40s and maybe even 50s. I think he's got the biggest heart of anyone I know.
Same question, Marcin.
And remember, I almost teared up giving my answer, so the bar's now here.
Hey, this is good for ratings. Let's get a little zoom in. No.
Exactly.
Not to sound cliche, I definitely would say the same thing on Amit, right, in regards to heart. But to give you a little bit of a different answer, I think the number one quality that really helped us propel as individuals and as business partners is his understanding and being supportive of my current life situation and schedule, right? I mean, there's so many times where you know, we can only meet for 30 minutes and then I have kid time where the kids go down with me for another 30 minutes. And a lot of people, when you're breaking up schedules and making it only convenient for you, it's hard to do. But on top of that, it is really hard. You know, my circle is extremely small. My wife is very selective on who she lets into her life. And that was, one thing that she will still take today. Amit's been the greatest thing outside of the kids and me coming in your life is because of how he's making you a better person, right? No, it's true. Wiser, definitely amazing values and been able to teach me. And I would like to say business partner, brother, but also has been a teacher, right? In regards to how to be a better dad through his actions, through his words, through his stories, and being a better person. So again, I hate to piggyback off yours because I think it's really how we bonded outside of the business and upbringings and hustle. Is just realizing we're good people and we're kind and we want to do good in the world. But on top of that, like from the quality from a business standpoint, is really just the support on the schedule. And then of course everything else that you support and hear my crazy ideas and stuff and get texts at 2 a.m. when I'm feeding the baby with like, hey, what do you think about this? And getting a response at 5 a.m. Is truly just that adaptability to my schedule. Cause it's not easy with a 3-year-old, 9-month-old and sleep patterns and, it's not easy. So thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Final question. Here's one of my favorite things about myself. We'll go to you, Amit, first. We're coming back.
I think my honesty. I pride myself on being a very straightforward, very honest person about how I live my life, how I treat people. I think that's it. Yeah, I think my honesty.
Marcin.
I can't piggyback on you. No, I'm kidding. So my favorite quality, right?
About yourself.
These are great questions,
yeah,
by
these
the
are
way.
really good. So I don't know if it's a quality to give one answer. The one thing that I love about myself, and not to put anything towards me, is who I became in wanting to do more in the world and help others, whether it's a small thing or big thing, and really make an impact on someone's life, whether it's someone going through something or applying to a job or just getting rejected or just being that shoulder to really be that person that I believe, and this could be different in the outside world, that people can say, you know what, I want to speak with Marcin. I want to be in Marcin's energy because it's something that could help me, whether it could be in the smallest way or biggest way. And then another quality is, outside of that, is just my work ethic and hustle and resilience of, being proud of coming from very little to be, in air quotes, successful, to be able to like provide for my family and keep that momentum and drive. So great.
Love it. I started doing these questions from the very beginning, first and foremost, because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna know what to ask. I'm not gonna know what to say. So let me do something to fill up some time. But then as I've been asking these questions, a theme has been evolving, and I like to connect it back to why we do what we do, right? So at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes, what we're doing isn't that serious. We're making alcohol. There are much more sophisticated things that can that are out there in the world, but the reality for us is to stay grounded in this experience as we do create these brands for people. Is how do we make sure we don't lose ourselves in the process, right?
Yeah.
So I say that to you, whether it's you're kicking back on a Friday night with a cocktail watching Star Trek, or having a conversation that may be going left, but you remember who you are and staying true to yourself, being honest. These things, as crazy as they may sound, are really the foundation of what you're doing. So don't lose sight of those pieces, as they are why you do what you do. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your transparency. And this was a really, really great conversation, guys. I appreciate you trusting your story with me. Hopefully it wasn't too painful.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the opportunity to tell it in such a open, easy way and comfortable. So thank you for that. But we're also just a little bit disappointed that we haven't shipped you drinks yet. So on Friday, hopefully you're going to be drinking one of our cocktails.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happening.
We will make that happen. Before we go, I would love for you to tell everybody who's listening, where can they find you? Both, where can they find you? So where's the brand? Where's that in retail? Where can we find you online, on socials, all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily you're going to find us on Southern California. You stumble into Bevmo, some Total Wines. Maybe when you're visiting one of your favorite hotels in California, you might see Mission Craft cocktails that you can enjoy. However, you can also order online on missioncocktails.com. You can buy a beautiful 5-pack gift box or a 3-pack gift box or individual bottles, and they get shipped right to your door. So
Across the country.
yeah, definitely don't miss out. Buy some cocktails, or if not for yourself, because there's some listeners that might not drink alcoholic beverages, it's the perfect gift. And if you know someone drinks cocktails or alcohol in general, they won't be disappointed.
See what the hype's about. Give them a try.
Yeah.
Say the socials again. What's the where they can find you on social?
So our Instagram is at Mission Cocktails, and then our website is missioncocktailswithinus.com.
So everybody's heard that. I say this all the time, and I'll keep saying it. It's great to support with your words and your likes, but small businesses don't become big businesses without dollar support. So go out and buy these products. These are great products. And, you know, tell a friend to tell a friend. My true final question is, what's next for Mission Craft Cocktails?
I'll let you take that one. I've been talking a lot. I feel like,
wow. Yeah, I think, you know what, we've got ambitious goals, right, with our mission. So we want to grow sustainably, make sure that, you know, we can grow and still fund 5% like we want to do in doing it organically without, you know, we're also self-funded. So we've got to grow at a decent pace without killing ourselves, but we'll take any opportunity we can. So we're Southern California. We'd love to own all of California. You know, clearly the DTC piece of our website will help, and then, you know, start growing across the nation. So we really want to own our backyard in California, and then, hey, New York, Texas, you know, Florida, Georgia, New Jersey, we're coming for you next. We're just we're waiting on the right relationships to make that happen.
There it is. There it is. So guys, I appreciate you again for spending some time with us. This has been amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing and participating in your growth, however possible. If you ever need me for anything, I'm here.
Appreciate it.
Let's just keep it. We're on a mission. Let's keep it going.
We're on a mission. Thank you so much. It's been truly a pleasure.
Thanks, Monty. Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.